Welcome back. Today we are making these absolutely delicious Oreo cinnamon rolls. To make our dough, we start off by adding 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour into the bowl of our stand mixer. To that we're adding 1 packet of instant yeast, which is about 2¼ teaspoons, and then 1 teaspoon of salt. We're going to give this a quick mix with our dough hook just on a low setting to get things mixed together. And then in a separate bowl, we're combining 1 cup of whole milk with 1/2 cup of granulated sugar and 1/4 cup of unsalted butter. We're heating that mixture in the microwave for about 90 seconds and giving it a quick whisk, then pouring it into our dry ingredients. We're then going to mix this together on a medium speed with our dough hook until our dough starts to come together. If you don't have a stand mixer, you can also do this by hand. It just might take a little bit longer. Once it seems like most of the flour has been worked into the dough, it's time to add our egg. So we're just adding 1 large egg that's at room temperature here, and this is going to make the dough super sticky. So it takes a little bit of time to incorporate the egg into your dough, and if you want to, you can actually beat the egg before you add it in. But you can see here our dough is kind of sloshing around our bowl, and after it's started to come together a bit, we're slowly going to add in a bit more flour, 1 tablespoon at a time. The amount of flour you have to add can vary. I find I usually add about 4 to 6 tablespoons, but you want to keep adding it and mixing it in until your dough pulls away from your bowl. At this point in time, I had added 4 tablespoons of extra flour to my dough, and it seemed like the consistency was pretty good. So you can see once I got it off of my dough hook, it forms a nice ball. It's definitely elasticy and it's pulled away from the sides of the bowl. So once you get to this point, it's time to add in our last ingredient to our dough, which is 1/2 cup of crushed Oreos. I mix this on a medium speed just until the Oreos are incorporated into the dough. It doesn't have to be perfectly distributed, but you do want the Oreos to be incorporated into the dough so that none of them get left behind. At this point in time, we're going to let our dough rest for about 5 minutes. So I like to form it into a ball and kind of scrape the sides a bit so that it's easy to release later. And then we're going to cover it with some plastic wrap and just let it sit. The heat from the dough actually should cause your plastic to fog up a little bit, so if that happens, don't worry, that's totally normal. Next, we're flouring our counter and we're rolling out our dough. So the goal here is to roll out our dough to be about 10 inches by 18 inches, and I actually do like to use a ruler to make sure I get it the right dimensions. Next, we're working on the filling for our cinnamon rolls. So we combine 1/2 cup of packed light brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of black cocoa, and 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. We're going to whisk this together and then set it aside. Next, we're taking 1/4 cup of unsalted butter and we're spreading it over our dough. So I like to just use a rubber spatula to do this, and I'm making sure that I leave 1-inch strip at the top of my dough uncovered so that way I can seal off my log once it's rolled. Next, we're using our filling just to cover that buttered area, and I like to use the back of a spoon to spread it out and get it nice and even, and also get rid of any potential brown sugar clumps that might still exist. The final step of our filling is to add 1/2 cup of Oreos on top of that filling, kind of pat them into place and spread them out, and then very carefully roll up our cinnamon roll log. Starting the roll is always the hardest part, so definitely take your time as you do this and just work slowly from one side to the other. I like to work from left to right and then back right to left, and as I'm doing this, I'm also kind of tucking in my ends to make sure that they stay nice and compact too, and that I don't have any bits of my cinnamon roll kind of spilling out the edges. Once our dough is fully rolled, it's time to cut these cinnamon rolls. So I'm a big fan of using floss to cut cinnamon rolls. It gives you a really clean cut and you don't crush your cinnamon roll log. If you don't have any dental floss on hand, you can use a knife, but you might want to chill your cinnamon roll log in the freezer quickly before cutting them so that you get a cleaner cut. So I'm going to cut 9 cinnamon rolls out of this log. You can cut more, but just keep in mind that your cinnamon rolls might be a little bit shorter than mine. I'm placing these in an 8 by 8 inch greased pan here, and we're going to let these proof with an assisted rise. So our oven is preheated to 200 degrees. We're going to turn it off, let them proof for about 30 minutes, then preheat our oven to 350 degrees and let them bake for 25 to 32 minutes. While our cinnamon rolls bake, we're going to work on our vanilla glaze. We're combining 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter, 1.5 cups of powdered sugar, 2 tablespoons of milk, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. We're going to whisk this together just until it's smooth. It should be pretty thick like this because you want it to be able to keep its shape once it's drizzled over your cinnamon rolls. As difficult as it was, I let our cinnamon rolls cool for about 10 minutes out of the oven, and then I added our drizzle over them. I like to save a little bit of the glaze so that way people can add a bit more if they prefer it that way as they serve themselves. The final step is just to top this with some crushed Oreos and then cut into your cinnamon rolls and enjoy. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to click the like button, and for the full recipe, you can head over to Chelsweets.com.